Listen carefully, because this may be the wake-up call you've been avoiding. Most people live like sleepwalkers, chasing happiness as if it's some prize hidden at the end of a maze. They scroll, they compare, they consume, convinced that somewhere out there is the secret to feeling complete. But here's the harsh truth. What you're chasing does not exist outside of you. Happiness isn't a trophy, and it isn't something that just shows up when life finally decides to treat you well. The Stoics knew this over 2,000 years ago. They understood that happiness isn't found, it's forged, built from the raw material of your choices, your discipline, your mindset. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and master of his own mind, wrote plainly, "Freedom and happiness begin with realizing what belongs to you and what does not." That wasn't theory, it was survival. He ruled the greatest empire of his age, yet he focused not on the chaos outside, but on the response inside. You need to let this sink in, because your life depends on it. Happiness is not waiting for you in some future promotion, relationship, or bank balance. It's right here. In your next decision, stop telling yourself you'll be happy when things calm down or when you finally get what you want. That's weakness disguised as hope. Marcus Aurelius didn't waste energy hoping the world would stop being unfair. He prepared himself to meet it head on. He reminded himself every morning that people would be selfish, ungrateful, and arrogant. Why? Because when you expect reality to be what it is, you stop being blindsided by it. Most people crumble because they build their happiness on fantasy. They expect life to treat them kindly. And when it doesn't, they collapse. You're better than that. You don't get to choose what life throws at you, but you always choose how you respond. And in that response is the foundation of real, lasting happiness. You've been lied to your whole life. They told you happiness is about comfort, about ease, about stacking enough pleasures until you finally feel good. But look around, how's that working out for most people? Endless scrolling, shallow dopamine hits, moments of fake joy followed by deeper emptiness. The Stoics weren't playing that game. They saw happiness not as a luxury, but as a duty. Epictetus, once a slave, taught his students that peace comes not from escaping hardship, but from training yourself to endure it with strength. That's the kind of mindset you need, not one that craves the easy path, but one that thrives on building power in the middle of difficulty. Stop expecting life to feel good all the time. Happiness is not about getting rid of pain, it's about extracting meaning from it. It's about training your mind to stand firm when everything around you is falling apart. Happiness is discipline, not luck. Most people live as if happiness is some prize that comes later. I'll be happy when I get the job, when I meet the right person. When life finally smooths out, that is the lie that keeps people weak, waiting, and wasting their years. The Stoics crushed that illusion. They knew happiness is not a destination, it's a practice, a decision, every single day. Epictetus put it bluntly, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This wasn't motivational fluff, it was a survival code from a man who went from chains to greatness. And here's your reality. If you keep postponing happiness, you'll never experience it. Because the future never arrives. There's only now, right here. Right now, you have a choice. Keep drifting, waiting for life to hand you happiness, or step up. Seize control of your response, and create it. No one else will do it for you. Philosophy is useless if it stays in books. If it's just quotes you post online but never live out. The Stoics knew this. They weren't ivory tower thinkers, they were soldiers. Leaders, survivors. Philosophy was a weapon for living, not decoration for conversations. And now, it's your turn to sharpen that weapon. Today, I'm handing you 5 core Stoic principles that can completely rewire how you face life. Not abstract ideas, not theories, but battle-tested practices you can apply starting today. These principles are the difference between collapsing under stress and standing unshaken in the storm. They are the blueprint for building real happiness. Happiness not built on fragile circumstances, but on unbreakable inner foundations. If you want to stop being controlled by moods, setbacks, or other people's behavior, you must take these principles seriously. Each one is a challenge, each one a demand, and if you have the courage to apply them, they will forge you into someone unrecognizable, stronger, calmer, freer. The first battleground is your morning. If you lose here, the rest of your day is already slipping away. Most people wake up like slaves. They reach for their phones, flood their brains with other people's noise, and hand over control of their emotions before they've even had breakfast. That's weakness? The Stoics knew the morning was sacred. It's where you either set your mind like steel or allow chaos to invade. Marcus Aurelius wrote every dawn to remind himself of the hard truth. People will lie, betray, complain, and disappoint. Why start his day with that thought? Because he wasn't fantasizing, he was preparing. He was programming his mind to expect reality, not fairy tales. That's your job too. Stop stumbling into your mornings like a victim. Command them. Your first thoughts decide whether you live as a warrior or as prey. If you master your morning mind, you control the tone of the next 16 hours of your life. Here's how you take back your mornings. 3 non-negotiables. First, accept that the day will bring challenges. Don't waste energy hoping it will be smooth. Expect resistance, because resistance is training. Second, remind yourself that no matter what hits you, you already have the strength to endure it. This isn't empty belief. It's recognition that you've survived every hard day before this one. Third, narrow your focus to what you can actually control. Your effort, your attention, your attitude. Everything else is noise. Try this tomorrow. Before you touch your phone, ask yourself 3 questions. What am I grateful for right now? What single action will move my life forward today? How do I want to show up when the world tests me? These aren't soft affirmations. They're commands. They program your brain to respond with clarity instead of panic. If you own the first 30 minutes, you dictate the quality of the 16 hours that follow. Science now confirms what the Stoics practiced centuries ago. Your brain is programmable, and your mornings are the coding session. When you begin your day with intention, gratitude, clarity, discipline, you activate the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that governs decision-making, emotional control, and long-term focus. When you start with chaos, scrolling, reacting, stressing, you strengthen the circuits of distraction and weakness. Marcus Aurelius didn't have neuroscience, but he understood the principle: train the mind before the world attacks it. He chose his mindset before fate chose his challenges. You need to do the same. Stop gambling your day on luck. Stop hoping you'll feel motivated later. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is permanent. Prepare yourself every morning as if you were a soldier stepping onto the battlefield, because you are. Life will ambush you with problems, insults, and setbacks. Only those who forge their state of mind before dawn can stand unshaken when it hits. Understand this. Mastering your mornings isn't about guaranteeing an easy day. It's about guaranteeing a strong response. You can't predict what will happen, but you can always decide how you'll meet it. That's the Stoic advantage: preparation over panic. Now, let's attack the second principle: transforming pain into purpose. Here's a reality you need to face. Your greatest growth won't come from comfort. Comfort makes you soft. Struggle makes you sharp. Every wound, every setback, every betrayal contains raw material for building strength. Epictetus, who lived through chains and disability, didn't tell his students to avoid pain. He told them to use it. He said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That means stop talking about strength and start proving it when life hits hard. Pain will visit you whether you like it or not. The question is, will you let it crush you, or will you forge it into fuel? Here's the formula. When pain strikes, you have 3 steps: face it, separate it, transform it. First, face it without excuses. Stop pretending it isn't hard. Stop sugarcoating reality. Say it clearly. This is painful. This is heavy. This is real. Denial weakens you, acceptance sharpens you. Second, separate what belongs to you from what doesn't. You cannot control the event, but you can always control your response. That's where your power lives. Third, transform it into purpose. Ask, what strength is this forcing me to develop? What wisdom am I extracting from this? What kind of warrior am I becoming because of this challenge? That's the Stoic alchemy, turning poison into medicine, wounds into weapons. Most people run from pain and stay weak forever. You will use it, because every difficulty that doesn't break you is training you for the battles ahead. Imagine losing your job. Most people collapse, panic, self-pity, anger. They treat it as the end of their identity. But a Stoic sees it differently. Losing work hurts. Yes, but it's also information. It forces you to examine what skills you ignored, what opportunities you never pursued, what values you compromised by staying where you didn't belong. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" a Stoic asks, "How is this happening for me?" That shift is everything. The loss doesn't vanish, but it transforms into fuel for growth. Suddenly, The setback becomes the doorway to strength, clarity, and alignment. This is not theory. It is practice. It is choosing to take command when life strips something away. Pain doesn't define you unless you surrender to it. Use it, and it becomes the very foundation of your next victory. That's Stoic alchemy at work. Hardship converted into power. Viktor Frankl, a man who survived Nazi concentration camps, echoed the Stoics with brutal clarity. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Think about that. Stripped of food, freedom, family, even dignity. He discovered a truth most people ignore. You cannot always control your environment, but you can always control your inner stance. That choice is the difference between despair and resilience, between giving up and growing stronger. The Stoics lived this same truth under emperors, wars, and plagues. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." Frankl proved it centuries later. And you need to stop wasting your life blaming events, blaming people, blaming luck. Your power begins the moment you stop asking why me and start commanding how will I respond. That's the discipline that forges warriors. Here's what happens when you consistently turn pain into purpose. You become anti-fragile. That means you don't just survive pressure. You grow stronger because of it. Most people think happiness is fragile, easily shattered by stress, failure, or loss. That's a lie. Real happiness, built the Stoic way, actually gains power under pressure. Every time you face hardship and choose growth instead of collapse, you reinforce the belief that you can handle more. Confidence stops being fake bravado and becomes unshakable proof carved from experience. Think about lifting weights. The resistance is what builds the muscle. Life works the same way. Every trial, every insult, every disappointment is a set, a rep, a chance to grow. Weak people waste suffering. Warriors harvest it. Your choice is simple. Let pain define you as a victim, or let it shape you into someone who cannot be broken. The Stoics had a name for a higher level of mastery. The discipline of desire, it's not just about enduring reality. It's about wanting it exactly as it is. That means when life throws obstacles, you don't just tolerate them. You embrace them as training. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything thrown into it." That's the mindset. Every difficulty becomes fuel. Ordinary people spend their energy wishing the world were different, resenting the unchangeable, drowning in frustration. Warriors don't waste time on that weakness. They say, "This is what happened. Good. Now I get to prove my strength." Accepting reality is not surrender. It is strategy. Because when you stop fighting what already is, all your energy goes into commanding your response. And that response is the only thing that has ever belonged to you. Now, we move into the third principle, releasing the need to control everything. Let's be brutally honest. Most of your stress comes from one toxic habit, trying to manage what was never in your power. You obsess over what people think. You worry about the future. You replay the past. And all of it drains your strength. The Stoics cut through this madness with a blade of truth. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. That's it. Epictetus called this the dichotomy of control. Your opinions, your decisions, your actions, that's yours. The rest, the economy, the weather, the behavior of others is out of your hands. The tragedy is that most people reverse this. They ignore what they can control and waste themselves on what they can't. That's why they're exhausted, anxious, angry, and weak. If you want freedom, you must stop fighting battles you cannot win. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to control everything, you gain true control. Why? Because you finally redirect all the wasted energy back to where it actually matters. Your own mind, your own choices, your own actions. Marcus Aurelius commanded himself to confine your thoughts to the present. The emperor of Rome, who commanded legions and ruled nations, understood he couldn't dictate the future or rewrite the past. He focused on the only battlefield he truly owned, this moment, his response. And if the most powerful man in the world had to surrender the illusion of control, what excuse do you have? You don't control traffic, or your boss's mood, or the economy, or the gossip of others, but you do control how you act, how you speak, how you carry yourself under pressure. That is your empire. Build it, and no external storm can overthrow you. Picture this. You're stuck in traffic on the way to an important meeting. The old you would rage, cursing, honking, checking the clock every 5 seconds, letting stress take over. But none of that moves the cars. None of that changes reality. The Stoic response is different. Accept what you can't change. Command what you can. You slow your breath. You adjust your expectations. Maybe you use the time to think, plan, or even strengthen patience. The traffic doesn't change, but you do. That's real power. The same rule applies everywhere. You can't control whether someone respects you, but you can control whether you respect yourself. You can't control if life brings setbacks, but you can control whether you collapse or adapt. This is what freedom looks like. Not the fantasy of bending the world to your will, but the discipline of bending your will to meet the world. Let's talk about relationships, because here's where most people destroy themselves. You try to control how your partner behaves, how your kids act, how your friends think, how your coworkers respond. You demand they meet your script of how life should look. And when they don't, you spiral into anger, resentment, disappointment. But here's the truth. People will never fit your script. They are who they are. The more you grip, the more you suffer. The Stoic approach is simple. Stop trying to control them. Start mastering yourself. When you release the need to dictate how others act, you free yourself to respond with strength instead of frustration. You stop being triggered by every mood swing and start meeting others with clarity and calm. That shift alone can save years of wasted conflict. You cannot control another human being, but you can always control whether you show up as a slave to emotion or a master of yourself. Look around. Anxiety has become the default setting of modern life. People wake up already tense, their minds racing about bills, careers, relationships, the future. Why? Because they're clinging to the illusion of control. They think if they worry enough, plan enough, obsess enough, they can force reality to bend. But life doesn't work that way. Worry doesn't prevent failure. It only guarantees misery before it happens. The Stoics saw this clearly. Obsession with control is slavery. Epictetus said, "When you desire things outside your control, you chain yourself to fortune." That's exactly what people do today. They tie their happiness to promotions, likes, followers, approval, outcomes, and then they wonder why they're anxious, fragile, and broken. The cure isn't more control, it's surrendering what never belonged to you in the first place. The moment you stop fighting the universe, you free yourself to dominate the one arena that's always yours, your mind. Here's how you practice Stoic surrender in daily life. Catch yourself in the act of fighting the uncontrollable. You're stressing about the weather. Stop. You don't control the sky. You're replaying what someone said yesterday. Stop. The past is untouchable. You're obsessing about whether your plan will succeed. Stop. Outcomes don't belong to you. Only your effort does. Each time you feel that spiral, ask yourself one brutal question. Is this within my power or not? If the answer is no, cut the cord immediately. Redirect that energy to what is within your command, your preparation, your discipline, your words, your choices right now. This isn't passivity, it's precision. Warriors don't swing blindly at everything. They strike only where their blade can cut. Do the same with your mind. The more you train this, the lighter you become. Stress falls away, not because life is easier, but because you've stopped carrying weight that was never yours. Now, we turn to the fourth principle, the power of gratitude. But let's be clear, this isn't the fluffy, feel-good gratitude you see in self-help books. This is a weapon. Most people overlook the treasures in their hands because they're hypnotized by what they lack. They chase more, and in doing so, they blind themselves to the abundance already surrounding them. The Stoics called this blindness a sickness of the soul. Marcus Aurelius cut through it when he wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to love." Notice he didn't say only when life is good. He meant every morning, whether in comfort or crisis. Gratitude, in the Stoic sense, is discipline, training your mind to recognize fortune in the ordinary and strength in the difficult. Without it, you will always feel empty, no matter how much you gain. The Stoics had a brutal but brilliant exercise called negative visualization. Seneca advised his students to regularly imagine losing the things they cherished: health, freedom, loved ones. At first glance, this sounds dark, even cruel, but the purpose wasn't despair, it was appreciation. When you imagine life without something you take for granted, you awaken gratitude for its presence. Think about it: the friend you barely acknowledge, the body you criticize, the breath you ignore. Picture them gone, and suddenly, they shine with value. Most people only realize what mattered most after it's already ripped away. The Stoic refuses to wait for tragedy to teach that lesson. He trains his mind daily to value the fragile, temporary gifts of life. That way, when fortune shifts, he's not destroyed because he already lived fully aware of the blessing. Gratitude, practiced this way, is not sentimental. It's armor against entitlement, blindness, and despair. Here's the truth. Your life is already overflowing with miracles you've numbed yourself to. Your heart has beaten thousands of times today without asking permission. Your lungs have pulled in air with zero effort. You can read these words because your eyes and brain are translating symbols into meaning at lightning speed. Yet instead of awe, you complain. Instead of gratitude, you grumble. That blindness is why most people are miserable. They overlook what is working while obsessing over what is missing. The Stoics knew happiness isn't found by adding more, but by finally seeing what's already there. When you practice gratitude like a warrior, ordinary life transforms into extraordinary. Water from a faucet becomes wealth. A conversation with someone you love becomes gold. A quiet morning becomes sacred. Gratitude doesn't make life easier, it makes life richer. And without it, no amount of success will ever satisfy you. Most people can only be grateful when life hands them comfort. That's weakness. The Stoics trained themselves to find gratitude even in hardship. Epictetus, once beaten and enslaved, still said every event is material for growth. That means even your struggles are gifts, because they reveal strength you didn't know you had. Maybe failure teaches you to value resilience. Maybe illness teaches you to honor the body you ignored. Maybe betrayal teaches you the power of self-respect. Gratitude here isn't about pretending pain is pleasant. It's about seeing the hidden training inside suffering. This mindset flips the script. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you demand, "What is this forcing me to learn?" That shift alone separates the weak from the strong. Gratitude in comfort makes you pleasant. Gratitude in adversity makes you unshakable. And that is what Stoic discipline demands of you. Here's your nightly drill, 5 minutes. No excuses. Before bed, instead of scrolling, instead of replaying the day's failures, sit down and list 3 things you're grateful for. But don't stop at writing them. Visualize losing them. Imagine tomorrow without your health, without the person you love, without the roof over your head. Feel that emptiness for a moment. Then recognize you still have them right now. That shift turns routine blessings into treasures. Choose one big, one medium, and one small, big. Your family, your home, your body still carrying you. Medium, a friend's text, a good meal, a moment of peace. Small, running water, a working phone. The ability to read these words. Don't just think them, feel them. This is training. Gratitude isn't soft. It's strength conditioning for your mind. And when practiced daily, it rewires your brain to notice abundance instead of lack. Neuroscience now proves what the Stoics practiced instinctively. Gratitude literally rewires the brain. When you deliberately focus on what is good, you activate the prefrontal cortex, the center of rational thought, emotional regulation, and decision-making. At the same time, you weaken the amygdala's grip, the part of the brain that triggers fear, anger, and anxiety. Translation: gratitude isn't wishful thinking, it's mental strength training. Every time you practice it, you carve deeper neural pathways for resilience, calm, and perspective. You make it harder for negativity to dominate you. The weak stay stuck in cycles of stress because they rehearse misery daily. The strong build gratitude habits and rehearse strength. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write about gratitude. He lived it through wars, plagues, and betrayal. If an emperor surrounded by chaos could train his mind to see privilege in simply waking up, what excuse do you have? Gratitude is not just a pleasant feeling. It's the soil from which every other virtue grows. Cicero called it the parent of all virtues. And the Stoics agreed, because when you live in gratitude, courage rises. You fight for what you value. Wisdom grows. You see what truly matters. Justice strengthens. You respect others as blessings, not obstacles. Temperance develops. You stop chasing excess because you already recognize abundance. Gratitude stabilizes you when life shakes you. It arms you against entitlement, which rots the soul. It protects you from despair, which blinds the mind. Without it, no wealth or success will ever satisfy you. With it, even simple bread and water become enough. That's why the Stoics demanded it daily, not as a luxury, but as discipline. And now we advance to the fifth and final principle, the foundation that holds all the others together, building unshakable inner worth that no storm, no insult, no failure can ever destroy. Here's the raw truth. Most people have no solid foundation for their self-worth. They build it on shifting sand, money, status, looks, achievements, other people's opinions. When those things go well, they feel unstoppable. But the moment they lose the job, the relationship cracks, or the applause fades, they collapse. That's not confidence, that's dependency. The Stoics rejected this weakness. They built their worth on bedrock, character, discipline, integrity, and the daily effort to live in alignment with their values. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." He wasn't talking only about money. He was pointing to the wealth of inner security, the kind no setback can erase. You can't be free if your identity rises and falls with external events. True freedom is knowing your worth is rooted in who you are, not in what you collect. When your worth depends on outside forces, you live like a puppet, your strings pulled by circumstances and opinions. A compliment makes you high, a criticism destroys you. A win inflates your ego, a failure shatters your spirit. This constant up and down is why so many people are exhausted, insecure, and enslaved to approval. They've confused recognition with value. The Stoics saw this trap clearly. Marcus Aurelius, a man with more power and praise than almost anyone in history, reminded himself daily, it's not the things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. He knew even emperors can become slaves if they let external voices dictate their inner worth. And here's the hard fact. You will never be free until your worth is rooted in what cannot be taken away. Your choices, your effort, your commitment to live with strength and honor, regardless of outcome. Here's what happens when you build your worth on unshakable ground. Failure stops being a death sentence. For the weak, failure equals I am worthless. For the strong, failure equals I am learning. That difference changes everything. When your identity isn't tied to constant success, you can take risks, face setbacks, and keep moving without collapsing. You stop avoiding challenges because you're no longer terrified of what failure says about you. It says nothing, except that you're human, and your training, Epictetus put it bluntly, circumstances don't make the man, they reveal him to himself. When you've anchored your worth in discipline and character, every so-called failure simply reveals areas for growth. Instead of shame, you gain clarity. Instead of despair, you gain direction. This is the power of inner worth. It turns losses into feedback, setbacks into fuel, and criticism into sharpening stones for your strength. Unshakable inner worth doesn't just change how you face failure, it transforms your relationships. When your sense of value isn't chained to someone else's approval, you stop begging for validation. You stop twisting yourself to fit their expectations. You stop collapsing every time someone is cold, distant, or critical. Instead, you meet people as they are, free, steady, untouchable. That's why the Stoics were able to live with dignity in the face of insults, betrayal, and rejection. They didn't need others to validate them, which meant they could actually love and serve others more honestly. Think about it. If you need people to feed your ego, you're not really loving them, you're using them. But when you're already secure, you can give without fear, respect without demand, connect without chains. This is freedom in relationships, the power to show up as your full self without being enslaved to how others respond. Comparison is the silent poison of modern life. You scroll through endless feeds, measuring yourself against curated illusions, someone richer, fitter, happier, more successful. And with every scroll, your worth shrinks. But here's the truth. Comparison is slavery, because it ties your value to someone else's highlight reel. The Stoics rejected this weakness completely. Seneca wrote, "He who envies others does not realize he is robbing himself." Envy is self-destruction. It blinds you to your own progress and chains you to another's path. The cure is unshakable worth. When you root your identity in discipline, effort, and virtue, you stop caring about who looks ahead or behind. You're not running their race, you're mastering your own. And here's the reality. No matter how much you compare, you will never win, because there will always be someone with more. Freedom begins the moment you stop measuring and start building yourself from the inside out. When your worth comes from within, success itself transforms. Most people chase achievements because they think victory will finally make them enough. But when they get the trophy, the money, The recognition, the high fades, and they're empty again. That's because they built their worth on results, not on who they became in the process. The Stoics refused to play that game. For them, success wasn't about applause, it was about alignment. Did you live with discipline today? Did you face hardship with courage? Did you act with justice, self-control, and reason? If yes, then you succeeded, no matter what the outcome looked like to the world. This rewires everything. You no longer depend on circumstances to validate you. Wins become opportunities for gratitude, and losses become opportunities for growth. Either way, you remain steady, grounded, untouchable. That's real success, to build a life where external events can't dictate your inner state. Daily self-reflection is the training ground for inner worth, not reflection in the weak sense of replaying mistakes or obsessing over regrets, but in the Stoic sense, a deliberate audit of your character. Every night, ask yourself 3 ruthless questions. First, did I live today in alignment with my values? Second, did I let circumstances control me, or did I command myself? Third, did I grow stronger, wiser, more disciplined through my choices? These questions cut through the noise of achievements and failures and force you to focus on what actually matters, who you are becoming. Seneca wrote, "Every night we should call ourselves to account." This is not self-criticism, it is self-mastery. Reflection is how you strip away illusions and measure yourself against your own potential, not against the crowd. Do this daily, and your worth becomes immovable, because it's built on truth, discipline, and progress, not on fleeting approval. When you build your worth on self-reflection and discipline, you become untouchable by the outside world. Praise no longer makes you arrogant, and criticism no longer breaks you. Success doesn't intoxicate you, and failure doesn't paralyze you. Why? Because you've stopped outsourcing your value to fortune. Seneca warned, "Every man is a slave to fear who depends on chance." Most people live chained to luck. When life gives, they smile. When life takes, they collapse. But when your worth is built on who you are, it's not what happens. Fortune loses its power over you. You stop fearing loss because your foundation isn't built on possessions or approval. You stop chasing constant wins because your dignity is already secure. This is freedom, the rarest freedom of all, to walk into any storm, stripped of everything, and still know your value hasn't changed. That's unshakable worth. That's Stoic power. Society is rigged to keep you weak. From the time you were a child, you were trained to measure your worth by gold stars, grades, trophies, followers, paychecks. You were programmed to believe, I am valuable only when others approve of me. That conditioning creates slaves, desperate for applause, terrified of rejection, addicted to comparison. And that's exactly why most people never find peace. The Stoics ripped this illusion apart. They taught that your value is not earned, it is lived. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote daily reminders to himself that even with power and status, his worth depended only on whether he lived with reason and virtue. Epictetus, born a slave, said the same thing, your worth lies in your choices, not in your chains or your crown. If both emperor and slave agreed on this, then you have no excuse. Break free from society's lie. Anchor yourself in what no one can take from you, your discipline, your integrity, your courage. When your worth is unshakable, confidence becomes natural, not fake bravado, not forced positivity, but quiet certainty. You walk into a room and you don't need to prove anything. Because you're already secure, you take risks without fear, because failure won't strip you of identity. You speak the truth without hesitation, because rejection doesn't define you. This is the kind of confidence people notice. It's not loud, but it's unbreakable, and it's rare, because most people are still enslaved to the opinions of others. The Stoics carried this confidence into every battle of life. They didn't need applause, and they didn't fear insults. Their anchor was deeper. When you build your life this way, you stop playing defense against the world. You start playing offense. You stop asking, will they like me? Will I succeed? And start declaring, I will show up strong, disciplined, and true. No matter what, that is real freedom. Now you can see the system forming. These 5 Stoic principles aren't random. They're a complete framework for an unshakable life. First, you master your mornings, setting the battlefield of your mind before the world attacks. Second, you transform pain into purpose, refusing to waste suffering and instead turning it into fuel. Third, you release the need to control everything, conserving your strength for what is truly yours. Fourth, You weaponize gratitude, training your perception to see abundance even in scarcity. And finally, you build unshakable inner worth. So no storm, no loss, no insult can strip away your foundation. Together, these create a fortress, a mental stronghold no chaos can breach. Most people drift through life hoping for happiness, waiting for circumstances to finally align. But the Stoic doesn't wait. He builds happiness daily, like a warrior sharpening his blade, piece by piece, choice by choice, discipline by discipline. Stop fooling yourself. Listening to these words won't change your life. Reading quotes, nodding along, feeling inspired for 5 minutes. That's entertainment, not transformation. The Stoics despised idle philosophy. Epictetus told his students, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That's your challenge now. Stop talking about discipline and start living it. Stop waiting for motivation and start taking action. You want peace? Earn it. You want strength? Train it. You want happiness? Build it right now. Pick one principle and practice it for the next 7 days without compromise. Wake up and master your morning, or confront your pain and turn it into purpose, or cut off one thing outside your control and redirect that energy inward. Just one. Do it, and you'll feel the power. Skip it, and you'll stay the same. Lost, distracted, fragile. The choice is in your hands, and you already know what the Stoics would demand of you. Act. Transformation doesn't come from massive gestures once in a while. It comes from small disciplines repeated daily until they harden into who you are. A single push-up doesn't build strength, but 1,000 over time reshapes your body. The same law governs your mind. One morning of clarity won't change you, but a year of mastering your mornings will. One act of gratitude won't rewire your brain, but practicing it every night will. One choice to release control won't free you, but training it again and again will. The Stoics understood this deeply. Character is the sum of your repeated choices. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily because he knew the mind forgets. You are either training strength or weakness every day. There is no neutral. Every morning, every decision, every response, you are carving who you become. The question is simple. Are you forging steel, or are you feeding weakness? Discipline compounds like interest. At first, the changes are invisible. You feel the struggle, the grind, the repetition, but keep going. And something shifts. One day you wake up and realize the old you, the fragile, distracted, reactive version is gone. People around you notice before you do. They see the calm in your eyes when chaos erupts. They feel the weight of your presence when you enter a room. They wonder how you remain steady when everyone else is breaking. That's the reward of discipline. It silently transforms you until you are unrecognizable. Even to yourself. The Stoics weren't extraordinary men at birth. They became extraordinary through daily training of thought, word, and action. The same path is open to you, but only if you're relentless. Only if you refuse to quit. Only if you're willing to sacrifice comfort for strength, excuses for mastery, and laziness for greatness. That's the cost. Pay it daily. When you transform yourself through discipline, the impact doesn't stop with you. It spreads. People notice when you stop reacting, when you carry calm in storms, when you live with purpose instead of panic. Your strength becomes a mirror that forces others to confront their own weakness. Your stability becomes a shelter for those who are drowning in chaos. This is why Stoicism isn't selfish, it's service. Marcus Aurelius carried the weight of an empire, but his discipline made him a source of order in disorder. Epictetus lifted countless students from despair by proving that freedom begins in the mind. When you master yourself, you lead without speaking. You influence without demanding. You inspire without trying. But if you remain undisciplined, you contribute to the weakness, the noise, the decay of everyone around you. Your choice is bigger than you. Become strong, and you give others permission to rise. Weakness is contagious, just like strength lifts others. Your lack of discipline poisons the people around you. When you complain constantly, you train others to do the same. When you panic, you spread fear. When you collapse under pressure, you give permission for mediocrity to dominate. This is why you cannot afford to tolerate weakness in yourself. It doesn't stay contained, it leaks. The Stoics understood this social responsibility. They didn't just train their minds for their own peace, they trained because their strength was needed by those around them. Your family, your friends, your coworkers, they're watching, whether you realize it or not. Every time you give in to excuses, you reinforce the lie that it's acceptable to stay small. Every time you choose discipline, You show that growth is possible. The world is already flooded with weakness. What it needs is examples of strength, and that begins with you. The world doesn't need more talkers. It needs warriors. People who can be relied on when chaos erupts, when others fall apart, when storms hit without warning. This is what Stoic practice forges you into. A warrior of the mind, someone whose strength isn't loud or boastful, but steady, dependable, unshakable. When others are driven by panic, you stand calm. When others chase comfort, you endure hardship. When others compromise, you hold the line. That presence is rare, and it's exactly why it's powerful. Marcus Aurelius wasn't remembered because he ruled Rome, but because he ruled himself. Epictetus wasn't remembered because he escaped slavery, but because he showed others how to free their minds. The same is true for you. Your worth is proven not in words, but in whether others can lean on your strength when they have none. Build yourself into that kind of warrior, and the world cannot ignore you. Understand this. The warrior's path is not easy, and it's not supposed to be. It demands sacrifice, comfort, laziness, distractions, excuses. You cannot cling to weakness and expect strength to grow. Every step forward requires leaving something behind. The Stoics lived this reality daily. Seneca reminded himself that wealth, status, even life itself could be stripped away at any moment, so he trained to release attachment before loss arrived. That's the cost of becoming unshakable. You give up the illusion that life owes you ease. You stop chasing pleasure as your master. You stop letting comfort seduce you into mediocrity. The price is high, but so is the reward. Freedom, resilience, peace that no storm can touch. Most people will never pay it. They will choose the couch, the scroll, the numbness. You cannot afford that weakness. If you want to rise, you must burn the old version of yourself and step into discipline without compromise. Now, let's lay out your battle plan. Stripped of excuses, 5 principles, 5 weapons. First, master your mornings. Command the first 30 minutes of your day, or surrender the next 16 hours to chaos. Second, transform pain into purpose. Stop wasting suffering. Every setback is fuel. Every wound is training. Third, release control. Cut off the dead weight of things that never belong to you. Other people's opinions, outcomes, the past, the future. Fourth, gratitude as discipline. Not shallow lists, but training your mind to see abundance in ordinary life and strength even in adversity. Fifth, unshakable worth. Build your identity on discipline, not on applause, on integrity, not on outcomes, on character, not on circumstances. This is the Stoic system. If you practice these 5 daily, you will become the kind of person no storm can bend, no insult can break, no loss can define. The blueprint is here. The only question left is, will you apply it? This is your moment. No more waiting, no more excuses, no more consuming wisdom without living it. The Stoics didn't write for entertainment. They wrote for survival, for strength, for action, and now their challenge is in your hands. You can keep drifting, blaming, scrolling, hoping life magically delivers happiness. Or you can rise today and choose discipline. Choose courage. Choose to forge yourself into someone unshakable. Your mornings, your pain, your control, your gratitude, your worth, they are your weapons. Use them, build them, live them, because happiness is not handed to you. Peace is not gifted. Strength is not given. They are built one choice at a time through relentless daily practice. And if you refuse, you stay weak, fragile, forgettable. But if you accept, you join the few who are truly free. The decision is yours, and it begins now. Type it, speak it, live it. I choose strength. I choose discipline. I choose to be unshakable. This is where it begins. Warrior, not tomorrow, not someday, but right now. Don't just nod at these words. Act on them. Pick one principle, one habit, one choice, and put it into practice before this day ends. Discipline means nothing if it stays in your head. You must live it. Leave a comment below and tell me the step you're committing to take starting today. Because when you declare it, you own it. Share this video with someone who needs to wake up to their own strength. And make sure you subscribe to Momentum Mindset. Because here we don't chase comfort, we build warriors. Thanks for listening. Now it's your turn to rise and become unshakable.